This is LXBN TV, and I'm Colin O'Keefe. With sequestration negotiations expectedly not going well, government contractors stand to lose a lot if major spending cuts go into effect. Joining me to discuss what he's seen so far and what contractors can do about the situation is John Chierichella, partner in Sheppard Mullin's DC office and author on the government contracts, investigations, and international trade law. John, you said in your post on sequestration late last year that, quote, it is highly likely that government procurement offices will lean on contractors to save the country from the consequences of political mismanagement, end quote. Generally, what do you mean by that, and what have you seen along those lines?
Well, okay, let's first start with the political mismanagement. That's the easy part. That's obviously the fact that they've not solved the budget crisis, and they find themselves on the brink of sequestration. What I mean by leaning on the backs of contractors to rescue them from that is that historically, whenever there have been tight budget problems, either as a general proposition or in connection with particular programs for which appropriations are being cut or curtailed, the program managers, the agency heads will go to the contractors and sort of promote sort of a false patriotism. The country needs you. The country needs this program. The defense of the country relies on this technology. You can't stop. You have to continue. Don't worry. I'll take care of you. This is just a momentary lapse in funding. I'll make it up to you later. And that is a common theme. If you got a lot of contractors to talk off the record about their programs, they would tell you it happens all the time. They won't tell you on the record because the customer is always right.
And second, what advice do you have then for government contractors during these tumultuous and uncertain times? What can they do if they're being asked to do more with less, and in places just be more patriotic?
Well, as a fan of Nancy Reagan, I would say just say no. I think that it's good advice to contractors. They ought not volunteer. There's a lot of law that says contractors who volunteer get slaughtered from a financial perspective. The technical answer is that you have to take a look at your contract. You have to take a look at your contract type. If you have a cost reimbursable contract, when you run out of money, you get to stop work. It's your right to stop work, and the contract tells you to stop work. But there are some traps in the way the contracts are phrased and constructed for contractors. You're supposed to stop work when you reach the funding ceiling. But the way the law works, the funding ceiling has to account not only for the costs that you've incurred in performing the contract, but for all of the termination and mass severance costs that you're going to incur if the program is discontinued or if you have to stop work. So you're going to have to stop work at an earlier point in time to account for those mass severance and termination costs, and you're going to have to calculate that. A lot of contractors are not aware of that trap, and a lot of contractors don't account for those dollars in connection with their work stoppages, and they get burned as a result of that. If you have a fixed price contract, this is the area that, quite frankly, I find to be the most interesting. Because let's say, for example, that you have a contract. We'll take a very simple, almost facile example. You have a contract that calls for you to deliver one item a month for 12 months. Now, under sequestration, the government may not have money for that last month, right? So what do? Do you keep performing or not? What I would advise companies to do is to write their contracting officer a very clear, distinct, no-nonsense, unambiguous letter. Please advise us as to whether or not you have sufficient funds to satisfy your monetary obligations to us under the contract. If not, please issue directions with respect to how we are to proceed, or not, as the case may be. Put the burden on the government to tell you what to do and what not to do, and then act accordingly to protect your rights. The other thing that you should do is really start looking at what claims you have against the government, because a lot of companies that are losing money as a result of sequestration are going to be looking for ways to maximize their revenue One way to maximize revenue is to prosecute your valid claims against the government so that you can recover more money. And a lot of people are going to be getting in line for those dollars. So you ought to start looking at what your claims are now rather than later.
Absolutely. There are uncertain times ahead, and it pays for government contractors to be prepared as best they can. Once again, that was John Chierichella of Sheppard Mullin. For more of his commentary on this issue, be sure to visit governmentcontractslawblog.com. And as always, come visit us at LXBN.com for more LXBN TV video interviews, along with curated commentary from the LexBlog Network's more than 8,000 lawyers. Thanks for joining us, John.
Thank you, Colin.